Welcome to VitaFriends Voices, a podcast brought to you by Vitaflo, where we will share your stories. Each episode will bring you engaging interviews with inspiring individuals who are either living with a protein disorder or are experts at the forefront of their field.
So this episode is going to be ever so slightly different. Today we've got Sarah Howe, who is a dietitian with 14 years experience in managing adults with inborn errors of metabolism. You might also know Sarah from social media, where she shares her passions for running, lifting weights, and her day-to-day life as a dietitian and a mother of three. Today, Sarah will weigh in on the various topics we've covered in Series 1 and also give her expert perspective. So we'll explore common themes, take a look at the various challenges our guests have faced and how they've overcome them as well. We'll also take a look back on the many successes our guests have shared throughout the first season. So welcome to the VitaFriends Voices podcast, Sarah.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. So just before we begin, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I've been working as a dietitian since 2008. So I had a couple of years in sort of general medicine, that kind of thing. And then a job came up at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham in metabolics. It was meant to be just a maternity cover for a year, but I am still there 14 years later and still really enjoying it. So the areas I'm interested in at the moment is mainly PKU. I do see a lot of patients with PKU and PKU in sport right now. And some of their patients I've known literally for 14 years. So it is lovely. It's a lovely area to work in.
Wow, so you've got that real connection with them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Gosh, and it's one of those, isn't it? Once you start in metabolics, you never really
It's so
know.
Interesting, yeah.
I can relate.
Sarah, welcome along. And you've had the pleasure of watching all of our podcasts in Series 1. Is there any particular themes that come out?
There was a few. First of all, I want to say they were all great. They were really positive. And what I liked on the best was that everybody who spoke all want to give back to the community, which I thought was lovely. The biggest thing that came up for me was support. Support is vital. And this isn't just from us. It's mainly from family, friends, worldwide, online, WhatsApp groups, social media, everywhere. And it seemed to be one of the biggest themes that was coming up from those who were having children diagnosed with a metabolic disorder, right through to the adults who were living day to day, talking to people, regularly on WhatsApp and over social media. Planning. So everyone was coming across so positive, saying PKU does not hold them back. They're going to do anything that they want to do, whether career, sport, travel, but planning is vital. And that ties in with support, because obviously when you're planning, you're going to need support from your friends and family. Exercise and sport came up in a few of their podcasts. And surprisingly, it wasn't just protein people were talking about. They were talking about recovery, energy levels, getting enough energy and feeling themselves for sport. So they were the sort of the biggest things that came out from listening to the 5 podcasts. Yeah.
And maybe if we start with support, and you mentioned there that it's multifactorial, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just in-person support from HCPs, from families, it's also online. Is that something that you see in your practice when patients come in and see you in clinic?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a few patients who are quite active on social media themselves, so they're quite influential almost. So they're going out and putting stories and videos and talking about what they're doing, which is really helpful. But also people talk about a lot of people are in like Facebook groups, and they're not just UK based, they can be global, some of these, especially with other disorders as well, not just PKU. Because the conditions are so rare, people go looking for support and answers sort of in the wider community. So yeah, we do see it quite a lot. And then we do have people often seeing things on social media or in a group and then maybe come in and asking us a question, so they might want to double check what they're reading before necessarily. So obviously we want people to get the support from the community, but we also want them to get support that's evidence-based and advice that's evidence-based as well.
Yeah, and I think what was quite obvious too in a lot of the episodes was that it was about advocating for themselves, but also advocating for others.
Yes, yeah. And I thought that was very important. A few people were obviously saying that they were wanting to help the community and support the community. And by going online, and I know we had one who was sort of speaking on the news even, or in the media. It was raising awareness of the conditions, which I thought was amazing for the whole communities.
Yeah. And I know that you're quite active on social media as well. Do you find that people reach out to you via those channels?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I've had a blog as well as doing things in sort of dietetic practice. And if you do post things that are relatable, or that's the thing, if you've had an experience, people do come to you and want help. So that was more on a personal level for me when I've had experience with my children. Again, like some of the people were talking in the podcast, if you've had that experience, people want to know how you've got through it and what you've done. And that's why I feel like support is so vital from the communities. And I find that as well when I go to the conferences, like I go as a professional, so say some of the big global conferences or the European or even the UK based ones, and I go excited to learn all about what's going on in the scientific world, but actually it's when you're listening to the patient part of it and you're listening to what they go through day to day and the actual real life experiences is when I think, wow, I actually don't know, haven't got a clue really what it's like to live with this, with PKU, with any other metabolic disorder. And you can see for them why it's so important to have the community and get the experience from people who've already gone through it.
And I think that's what you and I have found too, isn't it? Having these conversations with patients and with carers and parents. It's the patient perspective. It's the people living it. Those are the stories that are so impactful.
Yeah. Definitely. I completely agree. And I think sometimes as well, it's not always the positive ones people like as well. People want to hear it's rubbish, like the bad bits and the good bits. They want to hear the positive stories, but they also want to be like, oh yeah, you struggle with that too, or this is really difficult, or how do you manage that? Yeah. Which we can give advice on how to do it, but we're not doing it, even as professionals. No. This is the perfect ideal, isn't what we want to go, but people need to have the support from the people who are doing it.
Yeah.
And as we're discussing now, it's about living with it, isn't it? You know? And every day is not perfect.
Definitely.
And it's about capturing that support that helps you in those moments. And one of the things I think from a personal point of view is that everybody has been so honest who's been on Series 1.
Yeah.
They've opened up, they've been completely honest, about the challenges they've faced, but also about the good things as well.
Yeah, definitely.
How they've overcome those challenges.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the motivation on their mindset as well.
Yeah.
In terms of how they cope with the diseases. But also as well, as you rightly say, it's being very honest and open and when it isn't going well.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of the things you picked up on there, Sarah, and it has come across is the planning.
Yeah.
And I think you said planning.
Yeah.
And how hard do you think that is for people to do?
I think it ties in with the support. I think, and also if we're talking about, for example, PKU, it also ties in with how well they're doing generally. So for someone who's possibly struggling a little bit with their diet or their phenylketonuria levels are not particularly where they would want them to be, or they're higher, that can make it very difficult because that can affect how they can plan. So it's almost like a bit of a vicious circle we see with people. It's like they want to plan, but then their phenylketonuria levels are too high, and then therefore they're struggling to plan. So it can go in a bit of a circle. So that can be tricky for some people. I mean, all I can think of is my personal experience of planning, and I haven't got a metabolic disorder. It can be difficult because it can be good to do. It's easy to do sometimes for a few days. You get into a good routine, don't you? Your meal plan, you write everything down, or you're exercising, or you're doing a blood test if you need to do it. And this can be fantastic for a week, or maybe longer. But then it can be so easy just to something happens in life, or something happens in your family, or friends, or work gets challenging, or even the weather goes awful. You just have a bad period of time, and it can all go out the window. But for people with a metabolic disorder, it's when it goes out the window, then that can affect everything in not a very positive way. So that can be challenging, definitely. And I'm thinking as well with things that I know holidays and travel came up a lot in the talking, in the podcast, sorry. And just preparing for a holiday generally can be hard work, especially with a family. So for people who've got to be thinking, I've got to be looking ahead at where I might be eating, or prepping with the hospital to get a travel letter and getting supplements sorted, because we see a lot of people like to change supplement when they go away because it's easier to travel, it's easier to carry things. So there's a lot of work. I think there's a lot of work involved. It's it's ongoing, isn't it? It's day in, day out, which I think must be very challenging.
And I think that ties in with it's okay not to be perfect, because that came up a lot too, didn't it? It's sort of managing your own expectations and saying, you know what, it's okay to not be perfect. And I think what you touched on there, when patients come into clinic, oftentimes it's a spiral, isn't it? So I guess a question is, when someone like that comes into clinic and sees you, what are the steps that you take in order to almost get them on the road to managing better?
We definitely just, I think we were chatting about this before, we just listen a lot of the time. Sometimes in the clinic appointments, we all feel like this in where I work. Sometimes we don't feel like we always do a lot massively, or we're starting right at the start. So we may just spend a lot of the appointment just listening. And we are trying in our service in the UK in Birmingham to try and be as holistic as we possibly can in appointments. So yeah, just listen, but thinking about other things, mental health as well, activity, sleep, lots of other things as well. And then if people are wanting to start at the beginning, we do try and take the pressure off. I mean, we know we've got guidelines, for example, in PKU where people's phenylalanine levels need to be, but I feel everybody is very different in that, and some people aren't happy with where they're sat at the moment. Some people feel they can be fine with them higher. Some people feel absolutely not, they need to be much lower. So we try and take everybody as an individual. And as I said, baby steps, so we start right at the beginning, really. If it's a small goal of even managing to take 1 or 2 supplements a day and not worrying about anything else too much, send a few levels in. If people start to do that, we feel they're motivated, and then we carry on. If people don't do that, then okay, we try again, maybe another time when they feel that they want to again. Yeah.
But again, that goes back to not having to be perfect, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it's nice there, you're kind of saying it's a step-by-step approach. It's if you can make a change and become 2% better every week, every month, then that's change.
Yeah, it's just if you're taking one supplement, you might be helping to reduce your phenylalanine levels a bit, if we're talking PKU, or just have a little bit of a better amount of nutrition going in than you were before. So, and that is better.
Yeah. And you touched on the 4 pillars of health there as well. So your nutrition, your movement, your sleep, your mindset.
Yeah.
I think they are all, individual steps. So it's like you might have someone who's really good at their diet, but actually the other 3 pillars need a bit of work.
Yeah.
So again, that's sort of a step-by-step approach, isn't it? It's not all or nothing.
Yeah.
It's sort of trying to find a balance.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And I think one of the aspects, just to pick up on what we're talking about here, one of the aspects was sport. That was quite a major theme that came through with Richard, Annie and Dara in terms of, their real sort of interest in sport.
And Bianca as well.
And Bianca, absolutely, in terms of, that being their goal, and they wanted to be active and they wanted to do that. And is that something you've seen an increase in terms of over the time?
Yeah, definitely. And I think because we've become a bit more, I've got quite an interest in it. So I think generally in clinic, we're starting to perhaps ask people a little bit more about what they're doing, because perhaps we've not done so much in the past. And because we're doing that, therefore we might be thinking a little bit more, is their diet optimum for what? Some people who may just be running a few times a week, we've never thought, actually, well, are you fueling yourself efficiently? Are you on enough protein? And then for people who perhaps we don't know are doing it, we're trying to encourage a little bit more, especially as people in the population we've got now are like aging. So we're making sure we're perhaps discussing it a little bit more. You're doing some cardio, some strength training. Depressingly, I think after we go over 30, muscle mass starts to decline. So we are trying a bit of the use it or lose it approach with people and try to encourage it. But in answer to your question, yes, we are seeing a few more people, especially the younger. My colleague finds it in the younger clinics that people are coming and asking a few more questions for exercise, for weight training, supplements, that kind of thing. And it can be useful because if people are wanting to perform well, it can help a little bit with them perhaps doing better with a diet, because they want to fuel themselves effectively and they want to reach the goals that they want. So it can go hand in hand, which is good. Yeah.
So it's actually starting with the younger adults now, where they have more of an interest in holistic health, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And they're seeing a lot more. I think we're getting a lot of the younger ones seeing a lot more on social media. Getting influenced. And because it's difficult, because a lot of people are just pushing protein. They're coming to us being like, what? How do I do this? Yeah.
And what advice do you give them?
Well, for this, a lot of the sports advice, because with a lot of the conditions we don't know. We don't 100% know. We haven't got specific guidelines for what to do. So a lot of the sports guidelines we're just taking from the general population. That's the evidence we've got at the moment. So it's just assessing what they're doing and seeing if they're on enough protein as a one, and we might just make some suggestions to increasing protein substitute possibly. And then as we've touched upon before, it's just making sure people are getting enough energy. So we've got, in our centre, we've got like an app people can use if they want, a bit like MyFitnessPal or something similar. They can track calories and carbohydrates and that sort of thing, so we can monitor what they're doing and give them a bit of a helping hand, because that seems to be a recurrent theme that is coming up of often getting enough, sometimes more than protein, getting enough energy to exercise, recover, and then exercise again if for the keen ones. Yeah.
So you'll be interested to read Annie's research when it's
definitely published. Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting, and yeah, she does so well. So, and is so keen to make changes, which is brilliant. Yeah.
So just from you talking there, it really sounds like you're taking the approach of tailored nutrition. So making sure that you see the individual as an individual,
Yes.
and then on the back of that, having mentioned that all you do sometimes is listening, but actually on the back of that, you then give your advice.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, well, everybody is so different, and as I mentioned before, everyone's goals are so different, and people may be happy with higher levels, for example, in PK, or people really want to work harder to bring them down or keep them down. So we do take everybody as an individual, and what some we might be giving to some person, advice we give to some person may be completely different to somebody else, definitely. And we're seeing people, that's what people want. I think people want to be heard and want to take control of their life, their condition. Yeah, it's their choices. And we've got guidelines, but they are guidelines. So yeah.
That's it. They're not set in stone, are
No.
they? They are guidelines. They're to guide you.
Yes, to guide us. Make sure we would tell people what they are, but it's within reason, isn't it? And yeah, definitely.
So it's very much the holistic yet individual approach.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, yeah. I think a lot of things that came up as well in the episodes was being flexible, particularly when it comes to traveling, to day-to-day life, when life happens. Like we said before, it's not about being perfect, but it's being able to adapt to situations.
Yeah, definitely. We get calls from people who, they've been on track, and then something happened, something changed, or they were going to trial something new, and it's taken months and months and months. They're not in the right space. They can't do it. But it's the same with anybody. You've just got to have that flexibility to say, okay, no, that's fine, whenever you're ready, and we can do it when you can. And then, like on holiday, of course, people sometimes are going to go away and not worry too much, because that's what we would do. You're not necessarily going to stick to something perfectly while you're away. It's just doing the best they can and having a good time and living life, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually brings me on to a question, I guess. Like, how do you manage disappointment? Like you touched on there before, when patients come and see you and something might not be working, like, innovative drug therapy, or they might have failed with their diet for a day or two. Like, how do you pick them back up, I guess?
I think it's just a lot of reassurance and listening, and sort of explaining that obviously with some disorders, it's important to stay very, very tight all the time. But if we're looking at sort of PKU, it's a transient stage where things haven't gone well for a week or two. It's fine. It's just a case of like, don't beat yourself up, take it easy and get back to it. I mean, with any sort of diet, it's going to happen. If someone's trying to lose weight, gain weight, you wouldn't give yourself such a hard time. So it's the same thing. Life happens, life gets in the way. And like we keep on saying, being perfect all the time, it's not what we would never expect it. As professionals, I think people worry like we're going to judge or like be perfect before sending a blood test in or give the perfect type. But half the time we are literally just like, no, tell us everything. If you're going to track things on an app, put everything in that goes into your mouth. We really, really don't care. We want to know, because it'll give you the best information, give us the best information, and then we can go from there with changes. Definitely, genuinely, we do not judge, not at all.
And it's picking up that theme, isn't it, of honesty, which I think shone through in all of our podcasts in this series. And how I really like what you're saying there, Sarah, in terms of put everything in and be honest. Do you think people do stick to that?
No, I don't think so. But then I guess it goes back to if you've been born, it's a lifelong thing. And we do see a lot of people who have got a lot of probably trauma really from childhood. It's having these expectations from being so young pushed upon and wanting to get levels right, potentially weight right. And then we do see people who do struggle with eating habits or disordered eating and things like that because it's been hard from being young, and there's sometimes a lot of things that need processing and sort of unpicking, especially the adults that we see. So I think we have some people who probably would be, but then not everyone now, because it's easier, isn't it, to look like everything's fine. Yeah.
And actually just touching on the disordered eating, it is a common theme, and potentially that's not a surprise.
No.
So when you do come up against these challenges, how do you try and change people's perception around food? Because that's essentially what it is, isn't it?
It depends sort of on how severe it is. We have had occasions where some people have needed some additional support because we've thought it's been quite a tricky one to unpick. In some of our disorders, we do also have a higher incidence of sort of neurodiversity as well. So some things like, for example, we do have ADHD and we do have autism. So we find that also comes in hand as well with some aspects of disordered eating or food cycling, having the same things, or issues with texture and things like that. So it is challenging. I'm not going to lie, it's challenging because we aren't fully equipped necessarily or trained. This is when we have to sometimes get help ourselves. But if someone's in a routine with food and they're only going to eat those sort of things, even though we're thinking, we wish they'd sort of branch out and get out of the routine, we just have to accept it. I mean, I remember seeing someone in clinic the other week who I've seen for many, many years we've tried pushing exchanges. We've tried, do you want to try a different supplement? Do you want to try different things? And no. But so it's just a case of, in some cases, like just as long as the levels are good and they're happy, we're happy. Yeah. But sometimes we have to recognise our limitations and seek some additional support as well. And then trying to encourage people to try new things. And even if maybe I can think of one case where we've said when someone's been quite severe with foods that they won't eat, sometimes even saying, try some different things if they're not low protein necessarily, even if levels aren't great for a bit, but if we can get this person trying different things and different textures, it might lead back to trying things that would be following the diet better. So just, I don't know, having a bit of an open mind with it as well.
And just to say that when we say exchanges in the UK, we're referring to grams of protein. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what you said there is really nice, because that's where the multidisciplinary team comes into play, isn't it? Because dietitians are not specialists in everything. No. So it's important to refer to the expert and the specialist when that's needed. I think what you touched on there as well is that some patients might be traumatized or impacted by things that happen in childhood.
Definitely.
And I think in these episodes in series 1, we've had parents on the podcast too who have had that, the initial diagnosis, the reaction to that diagnosis, the feelings.
Yeah.
I know that you are an adult dietitian, but when you were listening to those episodes, how did that make you feel?
Well, as a parent myself of 3 children, I couldn't imagine it really, because I went back to sort of those newborn days, and when especially your first, when you haven't really got a clue what you're doing. And I remember generally chatting in the WhatsApp group with people that I'd met or friends with children, and when they're not sleeping, or their poo's a funny colour, or they're not eating, and then throw in a metabolic disorder diagnosis within the first few days of life. I couldn't imagine that as well. And the strength from Aoife and Dev that spoke was incredible. And it also tied in with the support, how the support network, they sounded like they both got so much support from the online community, as well as the health professionals who sound like they did such a good job. And also it also made me think how important it must be as a health professional in those early days just to get it right. You need someone who's just going to make those first few days as smooth as possible and say the right. Then it sounded like for both of them, they had some really good professionals as well in those early days to help get them through.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one quote that I specifically remember, and it was Aoife who described the dietitian as saying, it's like, when Hagrid met Harry Potter.
I remember that.
That was a very visual and very emotional way of thinking about it in terms of, I'm Hagrid, you're Harry Potter, and there's this
New
world you
world.
don't know now, and it's and it's coming.
Yeah, that stands out to me as well. But it's kind of putting something tangible to it as well, but also giving that sense of hope. I've never watched Harry Potter, but I can imagine that is sort of that world of fantasy, of the fact that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be perhaps rubbish along the way, but what isn't? So it's trying to overcome those challenges and barriers and everything that life throws at you.
Definitely.
So by series 2, you needed to have watched Harry Potter, Kit.
Indeed. How many are there?
Seven.
Seven.
Oh, God.
They're entertaining, though.
Oh, I'm sure they are.
So if we just pick up on, not the Harry Potter thing, but this sort of, that support and the parents, I think one thing that came through when we had, like Wendy and Dara on was the sort of love and support that shines through in terms of, that and that connection as well.
Yeah.
Which for me, that was really powerful in terms of, just that connection.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But that goes back to support, doesn't it?
It does, that they had in those early days. And I think, it's the nice part of social media when people can reach out and find people in a similar situation and get the help. And those WhatsApp texts at like midnight when there's people awake, it can help at different time zones in different places in the world even. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually with Dara, it was a real sense of PKU doesn't define me. My disorder does not define me.
No, that's what I liked from everybody. They just went out and just did exactly what they wanted. And Dara, obviously being younger, he was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it was lovely to see. I mean, even though the planning bit is massive as part of that, all of them were just like, and how well Bianca's done as well. So it was great to see. Yeah, and I think somebody, and maybe it was Dara, who even said, maybe it was Dara, in PKU, it's just a diet. It is just a diet. It's only one part of their life. And which was lovely to hear.
Yeah. And it's quite nice with the younger adults who've been on this podcast. It was a real sense of having had support from their peers from a young age as well. In school, it was almost like, ooh, this is exciting. What are you drinking there? So it wasn't a taboo topic.
No.
So I think it's really important to try and encourage positivity around the fact that this might be your superpower.
Yeah,
definitely. It doesn't have to be a negative.
Yeah. And when we have had people in the past who said they don't like talking about it and they never have done. So we do always try and encourage, obviously we see adults, so it's a little bit different. But the people to tell people at work and friends, because it did come across in the podcasts how helpful people can be. They want to know, they want to try things out, they want to call ahead for restaurants for their friends and make sure there's things to eat. And also it's all out in the open, isn't it? It's the honesty aspect again, there's nothing hidden. And it just becomes part and parcel of normal life. If your friend's got a metabolic disorder, it's still them. It's just what they have to do on the side.
Yeah. It's what makes them them.
Yeah, it makes them them.
Yeah. And actually on that, it's a really good point that throughout the years, the diet has changed so much and the protein substitutes have changed so much. And with veganism becoming so popular, with vegetarianism and reducing our meat intake, actually it's becoming more and more quote normal to eat a lower protein diet. So it's almost the acceptance as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's nice for people when they are finding more and more things in the shops that they can have. And it's great as well because so many people are tweeting or putting things on social media about products that they find and things that are available, and that can really, really helpful as well, especially around like special times of the year, holidays and things like that, foods that can have. So, and it's easier in restaurants and going out to eat and travel, and because there are so many variations now that for like the lower protein foods. Some of the vegan foods we do have to be a bit careful with because they do want them to be, obviously for people who are vegan, they still need to be getting their protein, but at the same time, there's also a lot of lower protein options as well, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of them can be quite calorific as well. So it's almost, having a balanced approach.
It's balanced, isn't it? Yeah. And we all try to say to people, try and go as non-processed as possible, cook from scratch, but we're all meant to be doing that, aren't we? And not always.
That's it. But it's normalizing the diet. It's making it, if you can have as many natural foods as possible, then again, that makes accessibility so much easier.
It does. Yeah, definitely.
And as we all agree, it's about completely getting that balance right, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So talking about balance then, Sarah, one of the themes that you picked up on, and it did come through strongly within the podcast as well, is this issue of sort of mental health and having, that as part of an holistic approach. And how has that sort of changed within your period of time in post?
Think there's just become so much more of a focus, and generally, I think across everywhere, like general population, social media, there's such a bigger awareness now on self-care, looking after yourself. And I think Richard touched upon this, which I thought was quite nice actually, that like he never really used to put himself first, if you know what I mean. Sometimes, and now he's like, you know what? No, I'm gonna put myself first, and I want to really try. I want to do well with my diet because it's going to affect me and his mental health as well. But you could argue it though, in the same way, if someone came to clinic and they were struggling that much, and their mental health was so affected by the pressure, that's when we probably would maybe be saying, rein it in a little bit, and try and give advice that's going to enable them to perhaps stay on the diet, but take the pressure off, not to be so perfect and not to worry as much. And then it's also, I think, our job as well we do signpost a lot to resources, speak to the GP, and get help because sometimes we can just get a telephone call from somebody who doesn't really talk about the diet that much. They've just been struggling and they need to sort of chat things through and get signposted for some support. So it becomes a big part of our clinic appointments as well. Just as I mentioned, I think at the start, sometimes just listening. We might not change a thing. We might just listen, let people sound out, and that's all they want, and leave.
Yeah. Because I think if someone is already overwhelmed, you don't need to change another thing.
No, not at all. Not at all. And because we're easily contactable at our centre, all it takes is a text or an email or a WhatsApp. I want to focus a bit more. I want to tighten up a bit more. And we let people come and do that when they want to. Yeah, definitely.
And I think just in inborn errors of metabolism in general, we know a lot, but there's still a lot still to be done, isn't there?
I mean, as more and more people in certain disorders, more severe disorders, perhaps are surviving now longer. And then say, for example, in PKU, we're seeing the babies who were screened in the early 70s, everyone's getting older. So in our centre, we are thinking more about sort of comorbidities. Like we actually don't see much diabetes, but something along the lines of diabetes and heart disease. And many of our ladies are approaching the sort of menopause age now as well. So there's a lot of questions about how will that affect them. And to be honest, we're not too sure. It's a bit like the sports side of things. We're just having to adapt the information for the general population within a reason of a low protein diet, and the same considerations we would for ladies who don't have these disorders. And again, we mentioned in sport, we're not sure. I know Annie's looking into it, but we're not sure why people are struggling to recover or what's happening all the time to everyone's phenylalanine levels. And it's because it's a tricky one to study, but hopefully we will get some answers. Yeah.
There's a lot of unknowns, that's for sure. But I think 10 years ago, we knew a lot less.
Yes.
And now we know a lot more. So
Definitely.
who knows where we'll be in 10 years' time.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a lovely final question in terms of, as you've rightly said there, how things have changed. So where would you like to see the management of inborn areas of protein metabolism?
I mean, ideally, it would be amazing if there was a sort of a drug treatment or some treatment that would work a little bit better than some of the ones that are available right now to take the pressure off people. So even if they could focus a little bit more on and just get a bit more flexibility with their diet, and be able to take something that would, for example, in PKU, bring the phenylalanine levels down in perhaps just a bit more of an impactful way to make more impactful changes to the diet to get us to as close as, I say, our normal diet as possible. But also what I think Bianca touched upon, I think more and more we need to move into that holistic approach. Like you mentioned with the 4 pillars of health, everyone's sort of thinking about that a little bit more, not just thinking it's about phenylalanine levels, but taking everybody individually. So that we've got these guidelines, and in PKU, they vary across the world where people want their phenylalanine levels to be. But taking how everyone feels individually and working with them so they can live and enjoy life to the best they can.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much
No
for
problem.
reflecting on our series 1 and to give us, your insights as well. That's been really motivational. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you to our patients as well for
Being so
vulnerable.
honest and open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. And to our listeners, if you like this episode, please like and subscribe to this podcast and share with anyone you think might benefit from tuning in. Thank you for joining our vibrant community of VitaFriends. And for more information, please visit our VitaFriends website. Thank you also for tuning into season 1. And we very much look forward to seeing you next season. Bye.